The time by Caracas is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Record earnings at Regency, an IMF warning for Suriname, and the ECB tightens policy. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Thursday, June 11, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks so much for joining us. Coming up, Regency Petroleum reports its strongest first quarter ever, with earnings reaching a record high in the opening 3 months of 2026. Also ahead, the International Monetary Fund is urging Suriname to avoid premature spending of future oil revenues, warning of risks to long-term economic stability. And later, the European Central Bank raises interest rates, citing Middle East-related inflation risks and the need to keep price pressures in check. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
So much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with a warning for small business owners. Poor costing practices could be undermining the profitability of many micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, with some businesses potentially selling products at a loss without realizing it. That warning comes from Business Development Officer at the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, JBDC, Colin Coley, who says business owners must first understand their full cost structure before setting prices. Speaking this week during the JBDC webinar on pricing strategies for MSMEs, Coley argued that many entrepreneurs focus on what competitors are charging without accurately accounting for their own operating costs.
Pricing now is a very hostile game, especially in a free market economy like what we have here in Jamaica. And you have to be careful. That's why I do this first. Before you do any form of pricing, you need to know your cost first of all. That's the first thing you need to do. All right? Because some people deliberately say that a loss for a particular reason now. So once you know your cost now, before you set your price now, you do your homework. What's happening out there in the marketplace? Who am I competing with? Who are the customers I'm targeting?
According to Coley, successful pricing goes beyond simply adding a percentage markup and requires a careful assessment of costs, competition, and customer behavior.
First of all, you need to know is your cost, your true cost, putting all your labor, everything, and arrive at the cost. After you arrive at your cost, then Price, markup and price work hand in hand. How much markup, whatever goods you're selling, who you're competing with, what's the ability of the customers to pay. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you mark up 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. I can't sit here and I don't know what kind of goods you have. I don't know what your market is like. And I'm saying there's no standard markup in any business at all, right? In the petroleum industry, like the gas stations, the average like maybe 10, 12% because it's very competitive. If you mark up your gas 20%, then they say I'm on a TV and drive past a gas station.
That was JBDC Business Development Officer Colin Coley. Regency Petroleum says a major acquisition is already paying off, helping deliver the strongest quarter in the company's history. Speaking at the company's annual general meeting on Wednesday, Chief Executive Officer Andrew Williams notes the first quarter of 2026 was Regency's best quarter ever, with revenues rising significantly compared with the corresponding period last year. He says this is attributed to higher fuel sales and the contribution from a recently acquired LPG business.
It's our best quarter ever. It represents 1 month of LPG operations of our acquisition, recent acquisition. Our revenues are up. I don't want to state the exact percentage, but it's significantly up over this first quarter. And the LPG has contributed significantly to that. We are quite pleased with that acquisition. Our sales in general for the service stations, again, because of loyalty and strategies that we have put in place, we are now reaping the benefits and experiencing those increased revenues and profitability in this first quarter, which we plan to even further experience quarters to come.
And even as geopolitical tensions continue to rattle global oil markets, Regency Petroleum says its business remains on a strong growth trajectory. Williams says the company is seeing higher fuel volumes and stronger revenues.
There is no impact whatsoever in terms of our volumes, our revenues, our sales, our profitability so far. I cannot speak to the situation globally as it is now, and if it is continued for any extended period of time, what impact it might have. And the impact we are foreseeing in terms of if it is to continue where it is now for an extended period of time, it might only impact which the volumes that are sold, that wouldn't be just for Regency, but for globally. I mean, for everyone wanting to are having to have to purchase less fuel. That's for the automotive fuel sector. For the LPG, no, we haven't seen anything, and we don't foresee anything because it hasn't affected the LPG, the products, butane, propane, as significantly as it has with the automotive fuel.
Meanwhile, Regency Petroleum has crossed a major financial milestone, generating more than $2 billion in annual revenue for the first time in 2025. This marks another achievement in the company's rapid expansion since listing on the junior market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange in 2022 and represents a 24% increase over 2024.
For 2023, we had a revenue of just under $700 million. For 2024, we exceeded the 1 billion mark, just over 1.6 billion. And for 2025, we exceeded the $2 billion mark in revenue, which is a significant accomplishment for the company, especially a company recently listed and seeing that growth.
That was Regency Petroleum Limited's Chief Executive Officer Andrew Williams. In financial news, Main Event Entertainment Group is reporting a significantly weaker performance for the 6 months ended April 30, as lower event activity and challenging economic conditions weighed heavily on earnings. Revenue fell 46.5% to $577 million, down from $1.08 billion in the corresponding period last year. The company says demand was affected by the lingering impact of Hurricane Beryl, higher living costs, and weaker consumer spending. The decline in revenue pushed gross profit down 65% to $134 million, while the company's operating loss widened to $59.4 million from $8.3 million a year earlier. For the 6-month period, Main Event recorded a net loss of $111.1 million compared with a profit of $64.3 million in the corresponding period last year. Despite the setback, management says it remains focused on improving operational efficiency, controlling costs, and strengthening partnerships with sponsors and corporate clients. Now to news from the petroleum market. Fuel prices were mixed on Thursday, with diesel recording the sharpest increases. Automotive diesel rose by $10.50 to sell for $212. Ultra-low sulfur diesel is selling for $220.85 after increasing by $12.50. Kerosene rose by $4.50 to $190.65. Gasoline prices edged lower, with 87-octane gasoline down 25 cents to $193.63. While 90-octane gasoline fell 25 cents to $201.08. Cooking gas prices also declined. Propane fell 56 cents to $82.78 per liter, while butane dropped 98 cents to $92.20. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 109 stocks, of which 33 advanced, 57 declined, and 19 traded firm. Leading the winners are AMG Packaging and Paper Company, Mayberry Group, Image Plus Consultants, and General Accident Insurance Company JA. While leading the losers are Stanley Motor Ordinary Shares, Portland JSX, Margaritaville Turks, and Caribbean Cream. The main index declined by 1,111.28 points to close at 339,622.14 points. The junior market index declined by 35.90 points to close at 2,952.02 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, we're defining the term housing bubble. A housing bubble occurs when home prices rise rapidly due to strong demand, speculation, and easy access to credit. These price increases are often unsustainable and can push property values far above their underlying market fundamentals. When the bubble bursts, home prices can fall sharply, leaving some homeowners owing more on their mortgages than their properties are worth. The effects of a housing bubble can extend beyond the housing market, impacting investors, financial institutions, and the wider economy. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
This project marks a celebration of our 30th Hall of Fame and aims to highlight the achievements, challenges, and invaluable lessons of those who have shaped and are shaping the future of our economy. Our aim is to celebrate the voices and stories of 30 remarkable leaders in Jamaica's private sector. Join us as we explore these narratives of resilience, leadership, and vision.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, is warning Suriname not to relax fiscal discipline as billions of dollars in future oil revenues come into view. In its latest post-financing assessment report, the IMF says Suriname must continue building financial buffers and reducing economic vulnerabilities ahead of the start of offshore oil production in 2028. The fund notes that inflation remains elevated at around 11%, while the country's current account deficit widened to 53% of GDP last year as imports surged to support major energy projects. Although stronger mineral revenues helped Suriname record a primary surplus of 1.4% of GDP in 2025, the IMF says further fiscal consolidation will be needed to keep inflation in check and maintain economic stability. The fund also cautioned that higher oil and gold prices could increase pressure for government spending, warning that a significant share of future oil revenues should be saved or used to reduce debt rather than finance poorly targeted subsidies. The IMF says stronger fiscal management and governance reforms will be critical if Suriname is to fully benefit from its expected oil boom. In the meantime, Dominica is moving to protect one of its most important sources of development financing. The government is introducing new requirements for its Citizenship by Investment (CBI) program, including mandatory visits to the island by successful applicants. Speaking during a press conference on Wednesday, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit says the changes are designed to strengthen the program's credibility and keep it aligned with evolving international standards.
We are committed to protecting the program's integrity and reputation while ensuring that it continues to serve the national interest. To this end, moving forward, we will include requirements for successful applicants to visit Dominica in person and spend time in the country, providing them with a greater appreciation of our people, culture, and development aspirations. So, visiting will be mandatory. You will have to come to Dominica to receive your renewed passport as a citizen. We are also examining additional initiatives designed to deepen engagement between economic citizens and the country while ensuring that the program meets evolving international standards and expectations.
Skerrit says the reforms form part of a broader regional effort to safeguard the reputation and long-term viability of Caribbean CBI programs amid increasing international scrutiny.
The strengthening of the CBI programs is a regional reality, not a Dominica problem. We are moving in step with our neighbors to protect a program that has built homes, hospitals, and schools for our people, and a major source of funding for agriculture and small and medium-sized enterprises. More details on these measures will be announced in the upcoming budget.
That was Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. In other news, Grenada is expanding financial support for its public transport industry as operators continue to face higher operating costs. The government says more than 1.7 million Eastern Caribbean dollars has been provided to help bus owners absorb cost increases and avoid passing them on to commuters. Speaking Wednesday during a press conference, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport Isabel Morris says the support is aimed at helping public transport operators manage rising costs and protect commuters from fare increases.
Over the period 2025 to 2026, the government, through the Grenada Transport Commission, has invested over 1.7 million Eastern Caribbean dollars directly in support of our bus operators. This support has two clear and equally important purposes: to help operators meet the rising cost of fuel, maintenance, and daily operations, and at the same time, to protect commuters from the burden of higher fares. That investment has been delivered through two key programs. the fuel tax rebate program, through which approximately $1.45 million has been directly paid to operators to offset the cost of fuel. The Western Bus Passenger Relief Initiative is the second one, through which over $250,000 has gone toward keeping fares affordable for commuters. And there is more on the way.
Cabinet has also approved a 50% concession on tires, parts, and other approved consumables to help lower maintenance costs across the sector.
Now, Cabinet has already approved a 50% concession on tires, parts, and approved consumables, which will lower maintenance costs and help our buses to be safe and roadworthy.
That was Permanent Secretary in Grenada's Transport Ministry, Isabel Morris. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 20 securities, of which 7 advanced, 4 declined, and 9 traded firm. Today's winners are Ansa McCall, NCB Financial Group, the West Indian Tobacco Company, and JMMB Group, while leading the losers are Trinidad and Tobago NGL, AS Braddon & Sons Holdings, Angostura Holdings, and Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index advanced by 10.93 points to close at 1,443.27. The Composite Index also advanced, but by 7.29 points to close at 991.85. The Cross-Listed Index gained 0.47 points to close at 71.17, while the SME Index remained at 88.54. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
It's not so good right now.
Welcome back. In international news, the European Central Bank, ECB, has raised its 3 key interest rates by 25 basis points, citing growing inflation pressures linked to the conflict in the Middle East. Speaking today on the sidelines of a governing council meeting, ECB President Christine Lagarde says the increase is intended to ensure inflation returns to the central bank's 2% target over the medium term.
In line with this commitment, we today decided to raise the 3 key ECB interest rates by 25 basis points. The war in the Middle East is generating inflation pressures, and the decision to raise rates is robust across a range of scenarios, mapping out how the shock might evolve and affect the medium-term outlook for the euro area.
Under the ECB's latest staff projections, Lagarde says headline inflation is expected to average 3% in 2026 before easing to 2.3% in 2027 and reaching its target in 2028. She says ongoing geopolitical tensions could keep inflation elevated for longer than previously anticipated, requiring policymakers to remain vigilant.
This is a downward revision for 26 and 27, reflecting a more pronounced impact of the war on commodity markets, real incomes, and also confidence. The outlook remains uncertain, with upside risks for inflation and downside risks for economic growth. The full implication of the war for medium-term inflation and growth will depend on the intensity and duration of the energy price shock, as well as the scale of its indirect and second-round effects. This uncertainty is also reflected in the broad range of outcomes for inflation and growth in the updated illustrative scenarios put together by Eurosystem staff.
That was ECB President Christine Lagarde. Meanwhile, policymakers in East Africa are also navigating the effects of rising global uncertainty. The Central Bank of Kenya left its benchmark lending rate unchanged at 8.75% as policymakers assess the impact of rising energy costs and global economic uncertainty. Speaking Wednesday following the bank's Monetary Policy Committee meeting, Governor Kamartha Gay says officials considered the recent increase in global energy prices and transportation costs linked to tensions in the Middle East.
Having considered these developments, including the potentially transitory nature of the conflict, the MPC concluded that the current monetary policy stance, with a central bank rate unchanged at 8.75%, remains appropriate to ensure that inflation expectations remain anchored within the target range and that the exchange rate also remains stable. The MPC will continue monitoring the evolution of global oil prices and any second-round effects on inflation, as well as other developments in the global and domestic economies, and stands ready to take further action as necessary in line with its mandate.
Despite those risks, policymakers said Kenya's inflation outlook remains broadly stable and is expected to stay within the government's target range.
Kenya's overall inflation is expected to remain within the target range in the near term, assuming a de-escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. And this will be supported by appropriate monetary policy actions, government interventions, including subsidies and temporary reduction of VAT on fuel, expected stability in food prices due to favorable weather conditions, and a stable exchange rate.
That was Central Bank Governor Kamartha Gay. And in Brussels, the European Union, EU, and South Korea have unveiled a new competitiveness partnership aimed at strengthening industrial cooperation, investment, and economic resilience. Speaking at the 11th EU-Korea Summit in Brussels on Wednesday, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the initiative will deepen collaboration in trade, investment, and economic security. The agreement also seeks to support both regions' clean energy and digital transformation efforts.
This will strengthen our industrial and technological edge. It will attract investment, and it will accelerate the clean and digital transitions on both sides. To drive this agenda forward, we will establish a high-level economic dialogue. This will bring together our work on trade, on investment, on economic security, and on industrial policy.
That was EC President Ursula von der Leyen. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break. And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, Regency Petroleum earnings hit record high in first quarter of 2026. Regionally, IMF urges Suriname to avoid premature oil revenue spending. And internationally, ECB raises rates as Middle East risks add to inflation pressure. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.